All right, so before we begin, I would just like to state for the record that today is December 5th, 2022, and my name is Ben Bauman, and I'm in Indianapolis, Indiana, speaking via phone with Bob Jackman, who's located in Milroy, Indiana, and we are doing an interview for the Indiana Legislative Oral History Initiative. So just starting off, when and where were you born?
Well, I was actually born in Rushville in February 7th, 1943.
Okay. And what were your parents' names?
My dad's name was Frank Tompkins Jackman, and my mother's name was Lois Priscilla Jackman. Her maiden name was Anderson. And they were... my dad was born in 1900, and my mother was born in 1904. So they were basically, they were 42 and 38 when I was born. So they went through the Depression, and that's another story in of itself. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. So when did your family first move to Indiana?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. There's Jackman's way back, and actually my great-grandfather, a guy with the name of Nathan Tompkins, founded Milroy. I can't remember the date. It was early. It was like 1820. Rush County became a county in 1822, and that's pretty good. So it's 6 years after after the state became a state. So
right.
Yeah, we've been around a long time, I guess, is what I'm trying to tell.
Fair enough, yeah. Let's see. So did you have any siblings growing up?
Yeah, I have an older sister. She's 4 years older than I am. Her name is Ann Brackett, and she was a nurse, RN nurse for 40 years. Did a lot of work in mental health.
Oh, okay. Interesting. And so how would you describe your childhood growing up?
Well, I don't know. I grew up on a farm and, had a lot of animals and did a lot of work. A lot of the work back in that day was hands-on, and I had chores to do every day with the livestock. And then when I got to be 10 years old, I took a great interest in 4-H and did a lot of that, and actually used all my 4-H money that I had made to basically put myself through college.
Wow.
So back in those days, tuition was tough. It was a lot of money back in those days, but compared to today, it was nothing. You tell your grandkid, that he just wrote a check for $2,800 to a university, and I wrote a check for $120 back in 1961, I guess. So
yeah.
But anyway, but my childhood was had a lot of friends, did a lot of things, learned to drive a tractor and plow, and my dad was very structured in what he wanted me to do and learn how to do, and he kind of gave me a loose rope. I didn't tear up anything. I was pretty conscientious when I was on equipment and so forth, and but I always relished that because today's kid, they don't know how to drive until they turn 16 years old, and then they still don't know how to drive when they're 22. So
right.
But, I learned a lot of things about life, and did some hunting and fishing, and had some good friends, fishing holes and swimming holes, and had a lot of good friends. And so, I don't think I led a hard childhood, but I knew how to work.
Yeah.
And that's the main thing that I learned was, hard work never hurt anybody.
Yeah, okay. And what did you know about your family's political beliefs growing up?
Oh my gosh, they were diehard Republicans. My dad hated Roosevelt. my mother was a Nixon fan in 1960 in that election, and so yeah, they were diehard Republicans, but they had good they never did anything politically, but my mother was a school teacher and taught history, and she was very, very knowledgeable in all the political stuff with different presidents. And I think her most favorite president was probably Teddy Roosevelt. Of course, she was just born when she did a lot of studies, what I'm trying to tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah. She graduated from DePaul University, I think, in 1924, maybe. I'm not sure exactly about that. But, and my dad didn't have any kind of he graduated from high school, of course, but he didn't have any college knowledge or college education. And of course, he always wanted me to, do better. And of course, I think every generation, wants their kids to do better than they did, and wants it better for their kids. And that he was that type of guy. He was very sincere, but at the same time, he was get her done, son. Because you can do it. So we had some good times, and he actually, my dad passed away when I was as I started my senior year in high school.
Okay.
So that was tough, and threw everything on my mother as far as the farm with livestock and crops and blah blah blah. But we all survived, so learned a lot of lessons.
Yeah, absolutely. So what did you do after high school then?
Well, I wanted to stay home and farm, but my mother, being the driving force behind me, she said, "You're not going to farm. You're going to go get an education." And so I enrolled in Purdue in the fall of '61 after I graduated in May, and I didn't go into pre-vet the first semester. I kind of actually went into engineering, and then took me a semester to figure out that I was not going to be an engineer. And I think that's the way with a lot of people that start out with engineering. But anyway, I switched over to the ag school and was in, life science building. And at that time, the life science building at Purdue was brand new, or fairly new, and I really enjoyed it. And switched over to pre-vet because I had a good relationship with 2 or 3 veterinarians here in the area, and talked to them. And I think one thing that I accomplished with my education, I got a sound foundation in science. My veterinary degree is very, very good. Got a very good foundation on how to do things and run life and treat animals, and I've always been very thankful for that. So, but I was in. I had 2 years of pre-vet and 4 years of vet school, so I graduated in '67, which is actually the 5th class that I graduated at in the school, because the school actually opened in '59, and they graduated the first class in '63. So, and at that time, Lynn Hall was brand new. So I had the best of buildings and the best of instructors and the best of facilities at that time. And then you fast forward 2 generations later, that the Purdue Veterinary School just went under a new addition with the teaching hospital up there, and for $108 million. And it was dedicated in April, and it's absolutely fantastic the way education has changed, and especially veterinary medicine and the health sciences and all that stuff. So you're actually the 3rd person I'm doing a history gig for. Okay. So,
oh, wow.
So I got approached to, the dean hired a lady to do a book on the first 50 years of the vet school at Purdue, and I had an interview with her the other day. So anyway,
wow, busy.
No, it just makes me old.
Yeah, Well, hey, it's good to have something to say. So,
Right, right.
um, yes, that's all interesting. Growing up, did you have much perspective on what it meant to be someone from Indiana versus from somewhere else, or?
No, I mean, we didn't do much traveling back in those days. I mean,
Okay.
it was, it was. I mean, life in the '50s wasn't easy really for farming. I mean, we did go to Michigan once or twice on a vacation, and went down to Cincinnati to the Reds ball game, I guess. Took a trip to Mammoth Cave one summer, but that's about. I mean, other than that, I didn't get out of the state very much. But
Okay.
so I guess the answer to that would be no. I didn't go to Chicago. Went to Indy and thought you'd get lost. Louisville was that went down there a couple of times, and I don't remember what for. But I mean, no, we didn't get out much, I guess.
Okay. Yeah. So, did your awareness of politics change much when you were in college?
No, actually, Ken, politics was my second. I mean, I didn't really get involved in politics until I ran for the legislature in the '90s, and I remember, everybody knows where they were when Kennedy got shot.
Mm-hmm.
That was a bad deal, and my mother, even though she didn't vote for Kennedy, she was really distraught that that had happened, and thought the whole country was going to hell, and everything. So
yeah.
I mean, in Vietnam War, I didn't get into that. I was in school and working my butt off to try to get through vet school, and when I graduated, I graduated as a veterinarian, and of course I went and took the physical in Annapolis, but the service didn't need veterinarians, so that's one thing that I've kind of, as I got older, I kind of wish that I had done some of the military stuff, but I didn't, and for whatever reason, and I had a lot of friends that went to Nam. A couple of them got killed, but
yeah. Wow.
It's that part of it, and but no, I was really disappointed with Nixon with all that Watergate stuff, and I didn't pay much attention. And then, of course, in '68 they shot Kennedy, or Bobby Kennedy got shot. And anyway, I thought all that was. I mean, I didn't get involved politically. I voted every time, and I tried to study and figure out who the best were, and did that. But as far as getting involved in politics, no, I was busy, trying to be a veterinarian and running a practice. And the '80s hit. Probably, as far as I'm concerned, the biggest thing about running a veterinary business happened in the early '80s when we had, and we're going through the same thing now with all this inflation and,
mm-hmm.
and price increases, and I mean, the only thing different here now is people are complaining about interest rates being 7.5. Well, back in the early '80s, interest rates hit 22%, and I just bought a farm and bought a practice and was heavily in debt, and it wasn't easy. I'll tell you, buddy. I'm telling you what, that was a mind opener, because you didn't know from one day to the next what was going to happen. And,
yeah.
I thank God I had a good bank.
Right.
And
right.
I didn't miss a payment, but a couple of times I was late.
Yep.
It wasn't easy. I tell you, you worked your butt off, and just to think how he's going to get ahead, how he's going to stand it, and I mean, before back there in the '80s, Coca-Cola cost a nickel, and then it went to a quarter, and now Coca-Cola did cost you $1, and now it costs you $2, and so we're going through the same thing right now,
mm-hmm.
right now, and so No, I didn't get involved politically. The reason I did, see, when I started here in Milroy, I bought this practice in '78, and I had a good friend by the name of Jean Ann Harcourt, and they had a school supply business on the west end of town, and I was on the east end of town. And you don't know where Milroy is, but it's only about 800 people, and so she was involved politically.
Okay.
And she'd call me up and say, got this guy, I'm going to have a fundraiser, and need $25. And I said, okay, I'll get it to you. And she said, well, now you got to come because I need bodies to show up. So that's how I got sheep, and then when this Senate seat came open when I don't know whether you know the history on this Senate seat or not, do you? Lysing got elected in '88. Jean Lysing.
Mm-hmm.
Have you talked to her at all?
No, I have not.
Well, she got elected in '88 to the Senate, and then got reelected in '92. And then in '94, she just thought she could run for Congress here. And at that time, she lived in Franklin County, and that was in the 9th District where Lee Hamilton was. And so she came within 300 votes of him in '94 in the Republican landslide thing of '94, and then decided that she might be able to beat him if she ran again in '96. So she had to give up the seat. So Jean Ann approached me about, I don't know, September or October of '95, and I was very flattered that she thought I could do it, and I don't know, it gave me a great opportunity for my to expand the practice. My son was in vet school. He graduated in '95, and it gave him an opportunity to come back and join the practice. And probably the biggest lie they ever told me was that said, Jackman, you can do this. You can be a state senator. It's only a half-time job, and well, you can be a veterinarian. Well, that's the biggest lie that anybody ever told me, because you get elected to represent 160,000 people. Somebody's always on the phone, So
yeah. But
anyway, we had a good campaign, a good group. We did well. We got 5-way primary, and we learned a lot. Saw a lot of people. Got 43% of the vote. So it was all good. And then we had to just. I'll never forget. After the election in May, or primary, when we won, the next day somebody from the state Republican Party called me and want me to come up there and do something. And I said, hey, I can't do this. I got to keep my business going. I got to do something with it. I've been gone too long. But that was kind of but it's all worked out. We had a good I think we ran a good campaign, and I think we raised $160,000, which was at that time was quite a bit of money, for a campaign. But today it doesn't make, people are spending $1 million for a house seat, which is ridiculous. But,
yeah.
I don't. But anyway, it was. It was tough. I don't know. I've always been a guy that, if you look back on your life, about every 10 years you need a new challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes those challenges are more than sometimes you think you ought to be 150 years old because of all the challenges you've had in your life. But I think, it was, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the legislature. Met a lot of people. Didn't get anything big. I'll never forget. I don't know how many more questions you got here, Ken, but I'm kind of rambling here.
No, go. You're totally fine. Yeah.
Well, I was brand new in the legislature, and probably been to the state house 3 times in my life before that, and I'll never forget. I filed 2 or 3, 4 or 5 bills. I don't know that had to do with what I talked about during the campaign, taxes and property taxes, and I don't know what they all were, but Senator Forrest at that time was the chairman of the Finance Committee in the Senate, and he was a veterinarian. And actually, I had talked to him, quite a bit during the campaign, and he gave me some direction and so forth. And he kind of took me under his wing, I think, because we both shared the same location. And he called me into his office one day, and he said, Bob, he said, you got some good bills here. He said, but I'm not going to hear any of them. And I said, okay. I said, what's the deal? Why not? He said, well, we're going to address a couple of these things in the budget, and you're not going to get anything big done here your first term. And he said, what you need to do this first term is keep your eyes open or your eyes and ears open and your mouth shut, and go home and take care of the people that got you here. So that's what I did. And it's probably the best advice I had in the legislature. Of course, Bob Garden was a good guy. He was pro tem in the Senate then, and Potch Wheeler was caucus chair. Just great guys that just, they kind of helped me through. And I remember I went in to see Potch one day, and after I got there, and he was a well digger. He's passed away now. You never knew him, but just a great guy, down to earth. He said, Bob, he said, you don't have to worry about these bills. He said, all they are is a piece of paper. That wasn't all, but anyways, it's kind of puts you everything in perspective that way. But, and really, I think when, as I look back, that was 96, so I ran in 2000 and 2004 basically unopposed. 1 year I had a libertarian that ran, but, you still had to get out there and stuff, but you didn't have to bust your butt to when you ran again. But, I was, I did. If people call, I try to take care of them, and, we did a lot of parades, and, there's two gigs on this thing, Ken, and here I am rambling again. There's the job of being an elected official, being a state senator, that is in itself pretty demanding. But then you got the political side,
right,
that you got to do to raise money, to get reelected, to that type, and that's entirely different. And I really enjoyed, the legislative part. Found out that you never get everything you want. It's all compromise, and I learned a lot and met a lot of fine people, but I got sick and tired of the political gig. So
yeah.
That's not the whole reason I did it. I only ran. I was always told people, that I thought we ought to be a representative democracy, and people that get in there and stay too long, they just, it's just not right. It's not right. And I'm not a term limits guy either, because I think term limits give too much power to the executive branch of government, and because nobody knows what the hell's going on, and but at the same time, people stay too long, and so anyway, what do you got next, sir?
Yeah, no, that was good. So you covered a lot of different things there. Now, I'm curious, what were you thinking when you first got elected? Were you surprised, or were you just expecting to get elected, or, what was your thought process?
Well, I was pretty confident. I worked my butt off, and we had run the primary, and then had the Democrat opponent was from Shelby County, and of course Shelby County was at that time, Senate District 42 was Shelby, Rice, Decatur, and Fayette counties, and the western side of Franklin, which it was all 4 counties. I mean, people who knew who their elected officials were. And, but Shelby County was the biggest, had I can't remember how much of the vote they had. It was over 30%. I know that.
Right.
And, but we had a plan. Gene Ann, we had a good team, and we had a plan, and we stuck to the plan. We didn't waver. We didn't believe any of the, people that ran these surveys. I didn't believe them. We started out with a plan in July or August to start going to places and doing things. And, as it got closer to the election, I spent, a week in Fayette County, a week in Decatur County. And I don't know. One of the biggest things that helped me in the primary over there in Shelby County was I got acquainted with the county chairman, and they had lists of phone numbers, and they had 5 phone lines out of that headquarters over in Shelby County, and I took 5 or 6 people over there, and we called everybody on those lists. Hell, I don't know. God, there must have been 20,000 people we spent calling. And, that was a big help. And then I had other people, calling. I had actually a person that was bedridden here in Rush County that gave her a list, and she called all them people. And, name ID was the whole gig of it. That's what you had to do. As long as they recognize the name when you walked in the voting booth. That's what so I was, I was pretty confident maybe that we were going to win. But one thing, how things change. And I spent in the fall election in '96, I spent all day over in Shelby County at a precinct over there. I can't even remember where it was now, but, and then at 6 o'clock when the polls closed, I went to the headquarters in Shelby County, and I met a few people over there and knew the county chairman and blah blah blah. So the results came in, and of course, at that time they weren't computerized. They had to count them, and of course everything come in from Shelbyville City. And hell, I was down 700 votes, about 730, I think. And we left over there to Shelbyville to come back to Redshall, because that's where my headquarters were. That was the county I was in, And my son was with me, and we were coming across 44 there, going into Redshall. Had the radio on, said I was down 700 votes in Shelby County. And he said, Dad, we could lose this thing. And I said, you think? But, I ended up getting beat in Shelby County by 300 votes, which was, and I made that up in the other counties. So, my opponent, J. Lee Lux, he was a lawyer. I mean, he was a decent guy. We got along good. I mean, we never did get into a mudslinging deal.
Yeah.
I mean, I told him early on, or we met, at one of these chicken fries or whatever it was, and I said, hey, listen, I don't want to get into a fight, mudslinging and talking about people and trying to find out what you've done or anything like that. But and I mean, he was a decent guy. I mean, I can truly say that if I think J.D. Lux, if I called in today, that he would talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel good about that. And so yeah, it's the political arena is not easy. So another thing about the election in Fayette County over in Connersville, it was mainly Democratic at that time. All the elected officials over there but the Republicans were making some good strides, and they had good leadership in the county party over there. And I had a friend of mine, a client actually, that really took a great interest in the campaign. and he did a lot for me over there in Fayette County. And in the after I won the election or the primary, we did a survey over there, and I had 7% name ID in Fayette County, and so Senator Garden came over, and we had a couple of fundraisers, and we decided, at that time, they told us that don't waste your money on billboards, to advertise your campaign. But, I mean, we did in Fayette County. Of course, there's just two main highways. There's State Road 1 and State Road 44 in and out of Connersville. So we got 4 great big billboards on them and put them out, later on in the fall. And I lost Fayette County by 4 votes. So, and got a chance, at that time, Visteon over there was a big, one of the biggest manufacturers. Of course, Connersville, there was lots and lots of industry in Fayette County, nuts and bolts and fabricators and tool and die guys. And then, of course, Visteon was like, 18 acres under roof. And, anyway, it was an experience.
Yeah, sounds like it. Now, what was the relationship like between Democrats and Republicans when you served?
Well, when we went in 96, the Republicans in the Senate were 31-19, and I've always told people if I probably got elected in the minority, I probably wouldn't have lasted 4 years because it was pretty structured, and of course the House at that time was 50, fighting between 50-50. One session it was 50-50, and I got along good with the Democrats. We had Jimmy Lewis he was from Charlestown. You talk about the Reagan Republicans, and down along the river, those Democrats were. They were Democrats, but they were conservative. They were knowledgeable. I got along great with them. In fact, at that time, you wanted to get a person from the opposite party to go on a bill with you to help you, with it, or be the second author. And then the guy that was the minority leader at that time was Senator, he's from down there around Corydon at that time. I can't remember what his name was. He was a good guy. Lonnie Randolph, I got acquainted with Lonnie Randolph. He was from the East Chicago area. I liked him. We got along. I got along good with him. It's not, what somebody say the other day said, I'd like to have a whole bunch of moderate Republicans and moderate Democrats get together, and not have all these right-wing people, on both sides, which is, absolutely ridiculous. This fighting and victories, that's not the way you get things done.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just, I just get upset every time we talk about it. They're just making it worse for their constituents,
Yeah.
And, the money they raise and the land, just like this thing going on down there in Georgia now. My gosh, it's just hard. And the money they spent, my land is, I just can't get over it, and, the saying got to be, and I don't know how, the saying got to be, if the House passed the bill, the Senate fixed it, and that's what we did. We fixed the budget, and, that was kind of what we didn't get all the publicity, but we worked hard and we worked together. And we worked with Democrats. They were in on some of they were in on more high quality meetings than I was,
Mm-hmm.
or high stress, but it was a different game. It was a different game. You had, if you wanted to get anything done, you had to get along.
Yeah.
And that's the worst thing about all this stuff today. And then, of course, you got these elected officials that do stuff wrong and steal, and that just gives everybody a bad name, and try to do stuff illegally, and so I just hate it. But I mean, I think, and here I am thinking again, the reason that we don't have good quality people running for a lot of offices, is because, the pay scale is so low.
Mm.
Now, granted, some of the benefits are great with the government and, that type of thing. But really, if you get elected, and of course this was, it was worse 30 years ago or 20 years, whenever it was. But, the pay scale is not that good. Good people, they don't run for the elected office because of the money. That's for sure. And if the pay was better, I think we'd get better quality people. But that's my opinion.
Yeah. That's interesting. I guess a lot of people don't realize how little people actually make being a legislator in state government. So.
Right. You're working for peanuts.
Yeah. Yeah, true. Let's see. So, did you notice a change then in the relationships between Democrats and Republicans over the course of your career in the General Assembly? Like near the end of it, was it different than when you started, or was it the same?
No, it was about the same.
Okay.
No, I mean, when I got elected, who got elected governor? Who was governor then? He was a Democrat, and he got reelected in 2000. And then Joe Kernan. Joe Kernan was one of the best friends I had. I mean, a good guy, just really, really solid man. He was dedicated, and I really did like Joe Kernan. Went on a couple of trips to Washington with him for different things, and the guy that died, what the heck was his name?
O'Bannon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, O'Bannon. Yes. And see, Kernan was his lieutenant governor, and he was from South Bend, and he'd been in Nam, he'd been in the military, and but just a solid guy, and and you knew, after 12 years, you knew who you could get along with and who you couldn't get along with, so you just went on about your business, and there wasn't the fighting and bickering, and I think a lot of that was due to Senator Garden's leadership, because he was, he was pro tem, and he probably, I tell you, Bob Garden knew more about government and the way it should run, and the laws and the things about the, Robert's Rule of Order. I mean, he ran the place very, very strict, and that, and everybody knew that.
Yeah.
You didn't. If you stepped over the bounds, you were going to get hammered, and you just didn't do it. Maybe you thought about it, but you didn't have it. You couldn't do it because nobody. He had great backing, and he was a great guy, and knew more about government and the way it would operate. If all bills should attack one. You just couldn't screw bills up. You couldn't. What was it? A bill had to be designed for one subject. That was it. And and other things. The way he ran the place, and if somebody got out of order, he didn't mince any words, and you had to. Look, he was the longest standing pro tem of the nation in state legislatures, and he did a great job.
Yeah. Okay. So was that kind of political polarization that occurred later on near the end of your career or after your career in the General Assembly, was that one of the reasons why you joined like the Armiga organization for retired legislators, or?
No, I think it, well, you know, I gotta help put this Omega together, and
Mm-hmm.
I think civility in government. That was the main thing, and that's the reason we're here. And I think it's a good organization, and we got to promote people getting along, and
Yeah.
plus the fact you get to see some of your old best friends that used to be your old best friends. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's just a way to stay in touch, and it's pretty unique. Brian Hassler that started it there in the house. I didn't know him that well. I mean, I knew who Brian Hassler was, but he was a Democrat, but he was very sincere on getting this thing started. And so I don't know how much really presence we have at the State House, but we try to get along with everybody, and we do have the support of the leaders, the pro tem speaker and all that stuff. So, and the governor too. So, I think they respect us.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Thinking of some other questions here. How influential would you say lobbyists were in the Indiana General Assembly?
Well, you couldn't run it without lobbyists.
Okay.
There's no way that you can know everything there is to know about every subject or everything that comes up.
Right.
And you've got to depend on the lobbyists to educate you and, tell you where they're at and what, I really respect those guys. They catch a lot of flack, from the public, but they do a tremendous job. Now the one thing, and lobbyists know this, and actually it falls over into, you got to be truthful. If somebody tells you, gets on you and tells you a lie, then he's done.
Yeah.
He's done. And, there's, I had a lot of respect for those people. They did a lot of work. They waited in line to talk to you. I mean, they were very sincere, at least the ones I worked with. And you can't run a part-time legislature without their knowledge, whether it's utilities, whether it's insurance, whether it's, banking or whatever. Why, you need them. And they make it, they make every legislator a better person, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, okay.
You got more knowledge on the subject.
Now, let's see. What about things like gerrymandering? How influential would you say that was in the General Assembly?
Well, it was there.
Okay.
It was there, yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't know what to do about that. It's been that way forever.
Yeah.
And changing things in government is hard to do. And I'll grant you, it needs to be changed because, well, just look at this Senate district here. Back then it was 4 whole counties, and plus the western side of another. And I mean, everybody knew who their elected official was. They knew who I was because they lived in one of those 5 counties. And I shared Batesville with Johnny Nugent because Franklin County was in Batesville was in Franklin and Ripley County, right on the line. Well, those poor people, you'd go down there, they didn't know, whether he was Nugent or whether he was Jackman. I mean, it's too bad. It's too bad. I don't know what to do about it. People smarter than me can fix it, but it's not going to happen anytime soon, I don't think.
Yeah.
And and here we are today with, the Republicans. Well, they drew the maps in Well, they do the maps in 2000, and they do the maps in 10, and now they do them again here in 20. And this Senate, go back and look at where this Senate seat was and how much it's cut up now. And I think it's 7 counties, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, if that, you gotta work with the population of that, and draw the maps accordingly. But it would be a lot easier if they could draw at least down township lines and not down alleys.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you on that. But it's going to be a long time before it's fixed again. I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand. Yep, complex issue. Let's see. What would you say was the most controversial legislative issue when you served?
Oh my gosh. Well, I worked real hard in the gaming end of it, which was pretty controversial at that time. Of course, the budget was always the biggest thing every 2 years. Getting the budget ranged and so forth and so on. And of course, I was very fortunate, that we the way we were structured and the way our tax structure was, we always had a little surplus, not what they got today. But then, of course, when I didn't run in '08, but that's when things went to hell, and with the money situation. So, the budget was always controversial, and gaming, I don't know, the gaming thing is, in my opinion, is a good way to study legislative process, because we did the pari-mutuel betting back in the 80s, and Boris did that, and then they did the river boats in '93 before I got there, and it was I guess the main reason I think that gaming passed, and was the money. Was the money that the state of Indiana could get from the gaming industry, which is, I always said, for every buck they pay, that's a buck I don't have to pay.
Yeah.
But at the same time, of course, I got involved with it by representing Shelby County, and I thought, it was good for agriculture. Anytime you can get an industry, an equine industry that moves to the state and bring good horses, and it just does something for the economy of agriculture with the feed and the barns and pastures and all that stuff. And that's the main. I didn't get into it because I love gaming. I got into it because I thought it was good for the state of Indiana, and so but that it took 10 years to pass the Racino bill, and after they did the riverboats B3, and then they made adjustments to that to where they're not boats anymore, and now the main reason it took so long to get the Racinos going, because they built the tracks, in 92, or I can't remember. They built this one over here in Shelbyville in '01. It took 10 years to get the tracks going, and the main thing was getting the horsemen on board. And finally, I just, you had the horsemen that wanted, we said it was a horseman's bill. Well, starting out, it was thoroughbreds wanted this, standardbreds wanted this, and finally I just told them, I said, hey, you guys get together and figure out what you want to do, and we'll pass it. but you cannot be fighting and bickering with each other because it's not going to pass.
Yeah.
You're not going to get the votes. And finally they did. So I don't know. But at the same time, sir, here I pat myself on the back, but at the same time, the state of Indiana needed money. And in '93 they needed the money because, they were in special session, with the budget because they couldn't have enough money. And that's another thing about Indiana. You got to have a balanced budget. You cannot pass a budget that isn't balanced. And and that's the law. So that's good. That's good. I wish the federal government had that.
Yeah.
So, but so I get, I don't know the abortion gig was controversial. I just hated it when those kind of bills came up because in my opinion, sir, there's no winners in that whole thing. In that whole gig, there's no winners, and it's too bad. I mean, it's just another reason why did government get involved in that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I remember growing up that people had abortions and they tried to abort themselves, and they took stuff and killed them, but that's how it all started, in my opinion. But the government couldn't fix it, so what? They thought government could fix it. Well, guess what? Here we are today.
Yeah.
So that's altogether a different discussion for another time, I guess. But
yeah, I mean, was the debate about abortion when you served the same as it is today?
No, it's worse today.
Okay.
It's worse today. We try. I mean, I'm not saying we avoided it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was up to leadership. But some things didn't pass for a good reason. I'll just leave it at that.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was. There's no winners, and I don't think. This thing the state's passed here now, I don't know that anybody lost their seat over the whole thing, but I mean, it's really divided. It's really divided people, and that's when you got a person in there, that gets elected for one issue, whether it's taxes, whether it's abortion, whether it's schools, whether it's school funding, when they get elected for one issue, that's bad.
Yeah.
You've got to be in my opinion, you've got to be a well-rounded person. You don't have to be the most educated person, because you can't be in every issue, but you got to be able to make a decision and not just be focused on the one thing.
Yeah. Makes sense. Let's see. I was reading in some old newspaper articles about some legislation that was talked about when you were serving. Do you remember anything about light rail legislation?
Oh yeah.
So what was that about?
I was part of that.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up because back in that time, these short railroads, you had CSX and you had Norfolk Southern, that were the main two in the state. But then you had these short lines that were owned by different companies. And the one I got involved here in this county in my district was the line that ran from Shelbyville to Lawrenceburg. And CSX owned the line from Indianapolis to Shelbyville. And then the rest of it on down to Lawrenceburg was a short line. And when I got elected, the owner of that short line was trying to get passed through the Railroad Administration to take up the rail and sell it. Because, see, that was rail was hurting. And, city couldn't make any money. And if he could take up the line and sell the steel, he could, and that was not only this short line, but there was other short lines in the state that were in the same predicament. Well, when I got elected, there was like 5 shippers, and Shelbyville, Greensburg, and Batesville, that used that line. And mainly they were agriculture. I mean, they shipped corn and soybean out on rail. And Knauf Fiberglass in Shelbyville was one too, and Knauf was doing a lot of shipping by rail. They're big fiber. You've heard of Knauf, I guess. Mm-hmm. And they wanted to keep the rail so that they would have the have a rail to go to in case truckers got too, if the trucking industry got to where they wanted too much money, because they needed a rail for that competition. You understand?
Yeah.
And so I got involved and got the middle of that. And we saved this rail line over here. And because, I went to Washington to the National Railroad Administration, and we testified. And we had, went to the federal building up in Indiana. I can't remember it all. But we saved that rail line. Okay, so that was in, what was that, 98 or 2000 or I don't know exactly when it was. But then so comes 2005. I got the opportunity to go to Japan with the governor, with Daniels. And so in 2000, and see, I didn't know, but, he was in negotiations with Honda back at that time. So why does Honda come to Greensburg in 2006? Well, they got 2 ways to get it. 80% of the cars that are made down here in Greensburg at Honda go out on rail.
Okay.
They would have not come to Greensburg if we hadn't saved that rail. And also, I got involved with the Midwest Interstate Passenger Rail Commission, that is high-speed rail in the United States. And that line that proposed from, it comes down, there were 7 lines at that time going around to, starting in Chicago to Detroit to, I can't remember. But the one that came through Senate District 42 was that same line going to Cincinnati. And then it went on around to St. Louisville and St. Louis and Omaha and so forth. And now I went to a meeting with them the other day in Indianapolis, and there's money now for, high-speed rail. I don't know whether you've ever ridden one or not, but that's the way to move people, less than 500 miles.
Yeah.
Because you go to the airport, you're going to jump on an airplane and get to Chicago. Well, it takes you half a day.
Yep.
High-speed rail, you can be up there in a half an hour. 250 mile an hour. You ever ridden one of those?
Yeah, when I lived in Europe, I did, yeah.
Yes. Well, I was in Europe, And, I'm probably not going to live long enough to see it happen, but, I got involved with that and was part of Indiana's coalition in that group. And you can look it up on the internet. They're doing some good things.
Yeah.
But government's got to build it, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would definitely be interesting. It'd be a pretty efficient way to travel for a lot of people if you had it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, think about the economic development. See, it at that time, back then, it was going to stop in Greensburg. And that would have been great. For this part of the world, that would have been great.
Yeah, definitely. So now shifting gears a bit and thinking in the big picture, how would you summarize your time as a state legislator overall?
Interesting.
Interesting, yeah.
Never a dull moment, I don't know. I tried to, one of my main goals was to take care of people that had a problem with state government. And, whether it was taxes or whether it was education, and, I got right in on the, the charter school gig was a big deal when I got elected, and I knew I knew absolutely nothing about education. I mean, I just, it was really tough. But I finally decided, that, and O'Bannon was that, but, he was for it too. And not that I talked to him, or not because I voted for it because of O'Bannon, but, I think it was good for education, and it gave parents another opportunity. But that was highly, highly, highly controversial, James to Christmas. I mean, I had, people, had parents calling me that thought that was the worst thing in the world. Well, I guess in some people's place, it still is. It's still bad. They think they take all the money from public education. Well, they don't, but that's their opinion. So, but overall, I think I did some good. I think I was accessible. I got to meet a lot of people. I got to do some different things. Another thing I got on was in '96, the Farm Bill they had an air quality task force because EPA was blaming agriculture for all the pollution of the air, with dust and manure, and so in the Farm Bill of '96, they created this air quality task force that was through the USDA, and I got to serve on that for 4 years.
Okay.
And went around the nation and to different places and studied, air. And I think it's still going. I don't know, they, again, this government and how slow things are. But, they had 2-year terms and you had to apply for it. Well, I mean, I was the only, at that time, I was the only state legislator or state, I guess, political office holder on the whole thing. The rest of them were PhD guys from Texas A&M and California, and we just had 2-year terms. Well, it was just like the legislature. It took you 2 years to figure out what the hell was going on, and I didn't get. I ran again. I put my name in the pot for the 6th year, but I didn't get chosen, and it got. I'm sorry to say this, but it got regionalized. I mean, there was just 2 of us on that from the Midwest. Another guy was a dairyman from up in Wisconsin, and then I was a veterinarian from Indiana, and the rest of them were, East Coast, West Coast, that had all their agendas with air pollution. But the main thing was, the main gig for the whole thing was, agricultural said, well, EPA, you're blaming us for pollution. And if we're part of we don't think we're the whole problem, but if we're part of the problem, we want to know it. And we want to work with you. And that's, we had representatives on this thing too from the EPA as well as agriculture. So, it was all a learning process, and so, but anyway, so that was very interesting. Back to your question, and I said interesting. I mean, there was, I had times when I'd get depressed and get upset. I had a good family. They backed me 100%. I was very fortunate. And I was very fortunate to make the friends that I had in the legislature.
Yeah.
But it's just like any other job. It's good and bad. Some days you wish you'd go away. Then when you home run, like when Honda came, I went to Greensburg for that announcement with the governor and across the interstate down here on State Road 3, and there was 13 media trucks got off down there, CNN and Fox, and I mean, it was a big deal. It was really a big deal. And I think they're expanding down there now. They're going to expand and start making the batteries. I don't know whether they're going to do that in Indiana, but part of the deal down here is to start making the cars for these batteries. So that's a good deal, I think,
Yeah.
Always tell people, if you came to Senate District 42, at Greensburg, there was a $450 investment in Honda, and if you went to Shelbyville, there was a $450 million investment in the casino and the track. So, but, and that's true. It's true.
Interesting. Okay. Let's see here. Last couple questions. I know you got to go in a little bit here. What would you say the public does not know about the Indiana General Assembly and how it operates?
Oh my gosh. Well, they don't have, the biggest part of the general public doesn't know who represents them.
Yeah.
And, that's sad. You try to educate people and, they don't know anything about government. And, you tell, I tell people as a state senator, oh, you go to Washington,
Yeah.
Yeah, I said, no, I'm state, I'm not federal. And that, that happened a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's wrong with voting. People don't get educated on who they're voting for. They see the name. That's the reason ID is so important in election, is because as long as you recognize the name, you vote for him. You don't know what he stands for. You don't know what his issues are.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what he's running, but he's a good guy. I've seen that guy. I've seen his name. I'll just vote for him. And I think we need to do more, and we do. I think we do a lot for education in a government. But hell, even my neighbors. They wouldn't have known. They didn't know what the hell I was running for. What are you going to do? You don't need to be doing that. So, I think it's and that's what's. That I'm back to the one issue guy, the one issue guy ran, because of one issue, whether it's education or whether it's abortion or whether it's, and he gets elected and he doesn't do a damn thing about what else is going on in the state of Indiana with insurance or utilities or what have you. Hell, I learned more about utilities in the legislature than I ever knew. My Lord. You turn the switch on, well, where does that power come from,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's big industry. So, I know. So where else you at, Ken?
Yeah. So let's see. What would you say is the most important work of the Indiana General Assembly?
Passing the budget.
Yep.
Holding to the budget and making sure the taxpayer's dollar is well spent and taken care of. And the every 2-year budget is the biggest accomplishment that they do. And it's not an easy job, I'll tell you. And again, that's where I think the lobbyists really make their living, is educating the legislature on their issues, and because at the end of the day, Padre, it's all about the money.
Yeah.
It's all about the money.
Okay. Well, let's see. Last question then. What do you want the people of Indiana to know about their influence on the Indiana General Assembly?
I think they need to take more interest in it.
Mm-hmm.
And get involved in lobbying, get involved in talking to your legislature. You've got the teachers union, you got the construction workers, you got the all those people that probably one of the biggest days at the State House was back when we when we leased the toll road, and all those construction workers filled that State House. You couldn't walk. You could not walk any place in that place, and they're yelling, and And of course, the teachers have done the same thing. But I mean, those construction workers, they were very involved in that to pass. And, and it did. I voted for it. I thought it was a good gig. I never had any controversy. The worst thing I hated about the whole thing, those 6 counties across the top of the state got $45 million for their roads in their counties, and I just got a little bit based on my population in my county, so
Yeah.
I didn't know whether that was fair or not, but you never get anything you want, big guy.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah. Makes sense. Well, is there anything I didn't ask about that you wanted to mention?
No, the legislature doesn't cost the taxpayer much money. I think, what is it, less than 7% of the budget is for the legislature, and people need to get more involved and talk to the legislature, and if they got issues, why, you got to get educated. If what I really hated is somebody that came to me about an issue, and all he had was hearsay. He didn't give us facts.
Yeah.
And that just blew me away. Here's this guy that doesn't know what the hell he's talking about.
Right.
But it's an interesting job. I'll give you that.
Definitely. Thank you so much for taking part in the project. I really appreciate it.
Well, good luck to you, sir.